so we're back for Out of Band. My name is Anne.
My name is Jennifer.
And my name is Faith.
And we are Out of Band with Jörg Stephan today. So Jörg is former colleague, friend, long-stand practitioner in cybersecurity, and I asked him how to present him. I'm never going to be able to do him justice, so I'm just going to hand it over to him. Jörg, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Oh, a bit about myself. Okay, then I don't try to stretch it that long, I guess. I blame my cousin. Let's start there, right? When I was 10 years old, I received a Commodore C64 from my cousin. Mm-hmm. And I guess that was the worst career choice ever, but I was only 10, so I hope I'm forgiven. And then 1998, I started in web design. What you do, right? HTML pages, somebody needed them, you produce them. And since then, actually, I think I did almost everything you can do in IT. So on the journey to 2021, I was an administrator, I was a developer, I was a CISO, I led the network operations team, I was a consultant, I was an engineer just recently, I'm an architect. So I guess I did it all in IT as well as in cybersecurity to some extent. I guess.
And that's
I'm on LinkedIn, so go to LinkedIn.
Well, yeah, right. So that's exactly why we thought, it would be great to have you with us, because we've been doing this series of sort of day in the life, going into more detail around, the perceptions of what jobs in cybersecurity are, and showing people that there is so much variety, so much breadth and depth. And your experience, because you have done so much, and also your take on how to get into cybersecurity, and specifically the good, the bad, the ugly of recruitment in cybersecurity, because we know you have some very interesting, provocative opinions on the topic.
Me?
Let me grab my tea.
The one thing, just for the people who are listening, Jörg, and it's to his credit, is very rarely on the fence about anything. If you ask him, you will get an answer, and it's equality. I mean that with I value that massively about you. You give answers.
Thanks. Well, yeah. Sometimes it's not good for myself, but I still do it. So
it provides clarity.
Yeah, that's true. So I guess let's start somewhere, right? I mean, I have been recruited sometimes during my career, I guess. I also had interviews and I failed. And I guess that's something worth talking about, right? And I started the story actually during the preparation. We started laughing about it, where I recruited myself into a company, right? And I guess that's, okay, let's start different. We need to credit, there are recruiters which are great. And in my opinion, I had the best experience with companies who have their own recruiters, right? Because they know their own company. They know their own way of working. They know what type of people fit in their team. And that's priceless, right? Because they at least have one side of the story.
Yeah.
And then you have these recruiters which pin you on LinkedIn, right? Where actually they have a business, and their business is making money of getting people to a job, right? Somebody gives them, hey, this is the role, this is what we're looking for, find us people. And those are the people which then do a LinkedIn search and they find your last job role, right? And what I would like is if they at least look at the full CV, right? Because I mean, it's something, right? Just because, I mean, I get new job offers when I change my role the day after, right? And suddenly they recruit me from my latest job role, right? Just ignoring what I have done for the last 24 years. And that's a shame, because I guess there is where you see what type of people you have, right? What they actually want to do. And that's something which recruiters should have in mind. I mean, it's the same in cybersecurity, right? We talked actually, at least with Faith, right, about threat intelligence. If you need to do a threat landscape for a company, you look at the company, right? You look at what they have, what could be their profile, etc. And I would expect the recruiter to do some sort of the same thing when it comes to recruiting. Yeah. At least, right? And I guess that's a bottom line. Check the current company somebody works for, what they pay. Because there is sometimes, I mean, I like to work for less, definitely, right? Everybody of us don't want to earn the money they have now if it's a great job. But I also had interviews where in the face they told me that actually they would pay half of my current salary, which is a bit out of the question, to be honest.
It's kind of a step backwards.
Well, no, a huge step. Well, I'm a large guy, so maybe it's not a normal step, but it's a step. But back to the story, right? I mean, I hired myself at one company. It was nice. I saw a job opening. I applied. I was really happy when I got feedback, right? That they invite me to an interview. So I sat at my PC and I dialed in on a WebEx, just saying, and nobody joined. So I was sitting there and nobody showed up. And I was waiting politely as a German guy, right, for 10 minutes. And then I dropped and I wrote an email and I said, hey guys, nice, but there was no one. What's going on? The recruiter came back. It was an American recruiter, right? Was based in America. So 2 days later, I got a reply, feeling really, really sorry that nobody was there, and offered me a second interview. So I joined, I guess, a week later, a second interview where nobody showed up. So what I did then was, I guess I wanted the job badly to some extent. I don't know, or I'm just crazy enough. So I took up my phone and I went through the email list and I looked one up, and he had his telephone number in his signature. So I called him. I said, hey, I should be on a call with you because you want to recruit me, but nobody is there. What's going on? So he apologized. And then in the third interview, actually, I had a bunch of people. The interview went 15 minutes and 2 days later, I got the job. So I guess I needed to go to some extent to hire myself, because otherwise, after the first interview, I guess I would have been forgotten forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's to some extent bad recruiting, right? I mean,
It
at least
is
a recruiter could show up in his own phone call. But yeah, that's one. Anybody else wants to share experience? I mean, I can talk for an hour, but
is that a startup or is that a big company?
Well, I don't know the actual number. I guess 350,000 people.
Okay. So what's worst case recruitment stories that you have, Jennifer?
Well, for me, it's mostly getting, for example, approached on LinkedIn, and you know that most of the times these recruiters who are in it for the money or are hired by an organization to look for profiles, they use automated scripts, they use standard template messages, which is fine because it makes their whole work way easier to deal with. But what I always find really annoying is when they use the templates with names in it, and specifically with the names of the previous candidates that they've contacted with, which might be a flaw, but if you are a woman and you get addressed with a completely different male name, that is kind of like, yeah, sorry, I'm not even going to bother anymore.
I can imagine. What I actually did to put something in, right, for these scripts, I have a long draft, and I guess I shared it with some of you at least via WhatsApp. I have a long draft, a long, really, really long text with what I want, right? So thanks for reaching out. I'm really happy that you like my profile. I'm now working so many years in IT. I just did this and this. It's a one page of text.
I want to see it.
And at the end, actually, then I put in, well, if you really want to reach out, send me an invite. This is the email address, and I created the email address. I hired this guy at USDA, right? So it's my domain. I hired this guy. And I said, well, if you want to reach out, please send me an email there. I'm happy to schedule something with you. And most of them don't reply on that email. But I had one recruiter actually during the last months who really then sent the email to that email address. So that's one step where I say, okay, at least he reads it. That's something. And I put that in. But also, I mean, I know you have also audience of maybe younger people. I would not recommend that for everyone. I guess you need to have gray hair and a beard at least to go to that extent, right? Because maybe for the first 5-6 years, you want to be taken serious. I don't need to have that anymore that much.
For me, I think the worst, not the worst, but what I don't like is the silence. You know, you go for an interview and then after that, silence, total silence. You send an email after like 2-3 weeks, silence. And then later, there was one who actually came back to me after I think a month, and they were like, oh, by the way, are you still interested in the in the job? I'm like, no.
No, that took
No.
way too long.
Exactly. So
The length, right? It's the length. Actually, I had two things. I got approached on LinkedIn a few months ago and had a conversation with a French recruiter for a big company. And not because I was looking to move jobs, but just because I wanted to see what he was offering. And he asked me what I was currently doing, and I told him. And he went, but I'm looking here at your profile on LinkedIn, and it says you've only kind of been doing security for, a small number of years. And I went, yeah. And he goes, in our company, you wouldn't be qualified to do what you're doing.
Okay.
that's why I'm not in your company.
I was like,
Yeah.
are you trying to attract me to apply? And he was like, well, yeah.
How does that work?
But the other one, and I don't know whether this is France specific, big French companies, it's like death by interview. I went through a process before I joined my current role. 9 interviews.
9?
9.
No.
That's
And I
kind of
the 9th one, and I said, you know what? I don't even know whether you want me. I don't want you.
Mhm.
I did 6 in Palo Alto. And I think Amazon has like 7.
Yeah. But I
think-
did, I guess, 4.
Oh, so they've reduced.
Or I was that good, maybe. I always forget this is recorded.
There was a fast
Damn.
track. No, but I think it depends on the company. I mean,
But that's also the problem. That's a problem. I mean, a recruiter
Mhm.
on LinkedIn, he doesn't recruit you, right? He
No.
tries to hook you up on a cookie. And if you say, hey, I would really like that cookie, he
Mhm.
tells you where the store is to get that cookie. And he says, please don't forget to trick your CV to that cookie store, which I find
basically
still
the world.
hilarious,
Yeah.
right? If a recruiter actually asks me for my CV, I always think, you found me on LinkedIn,
but you're not going
right?
to rate it. Yeah.
Actually, my CV is a copy and paste of LinkedIn, right? Because that's the only database
thing.
which is more or less accurate. So why do you need my CV? And for the other thing, for big companies, it takes time to give feedback, and I understand that, right? Like Anne actually said, right? 9 interviews. Worst case, 9 different people. They report to one manager. If he finds the time, we know some of managers. If he reads this email with the feedback after a week, he needs to think about it. Maybe he has questions. Another week has passed by, and then he goes to HR and tries to schedule something, right? And yeah, it's the worst thing. But there are companies, yeah.
But I think it also kind of depends on the country or on the culture of that localized company, because I'm also working for IBM. I mean, check my LinkedIn profile, you will find it out anyway. But for me, it was only 3 rounds, for example. So that's also a big company, but not like 7 or 8 or 9 rounds of interviews.
Yeah. I think it also depends on when you're being brought in, right? There's sometimes when they really need someone like yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the other hand, I mean, it depends really on the structure, and you are right. So, I mean, there are actually companies they hire for a role, and in that team, there are 3 people, right? Or there is, you have an interview with one of the colleagues, you have an interview with his manager, and then they add something to it, which is the first round with HR, and that's it, right? But there are just no more people to talk to. And that's also what you have, and which is quite common. So that really reduces the number. But it is a struggle, and you need to prepare for these interviews. I guess that's also a point we need to address somehow, right? And especially for people who want to join cybersecurity or do something new, right? It's really important to understand what you really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm 41, right? It's not a secret, and I'm still, when my wife asks, well, I actually try to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, right? Because I can honestly say, and if you take a look at my LinkedIn, right, I have done everything. I'm still not sure what I want to do next year, because especially when you come from IT, there are so many interesting, fancy stuff out there, right? And security is basically not it, right? I mean, security is nice, it's interesting, but then I'd see a blog post of something about AI, and I think, damn, that's amazing. Look at there's a nice post from a Belgian newspaper which uses AI and picture analytics to see if the people in the government actually, how long they are on the phone and not listening to conversations. I mean, somehow that's interesting stuff, right? And if you find a company which actually gives you this open space, right, so that you can still grow within the company, I think that's gold. Right?
And move around, yeah.
And move around, and let you go and evolve,
and not stop you from moving around.
I mean, if I would still do the same thing I did before, I would still do HTML pages. Maybe now JavaScript, but I mean, I'm somewhere else, and everybody is, right? Because you come from university, you come out of school, what you want to do now is maybe not what you want to do in the long run. And whoever asked me what I want to do in 5 years, I mean,
I don't like that question.
People still ask me, right? I said, well, I don't know what I want to do tomorrow. Why do you ask me about 5 years, right? So that's the thing, and you need to have that in mind.
So, you brought up a good thing about people preparing for the interviews. I think one thing when you're looking for a job, because I've been in that situation where you're looking for a job and you get a call, and then the interviewer is like, hey, we'd like to set up an interview, and you're so like excited and yes, let's do it tomorrow. You know, you don't even take time to sit down, relax, and understand that, oh, this is an interview. I need to actually prepare. So many people come to interviews or go to interviews unprepared, and that's just a ticket to fail. So what I do personally is, whenever I have a call, okay, maybe if it's the HR, it will be the first round. So that one I can do maybe less than a week. But if it is a technical round, then I'd be like, okay, 2 weeks from now, let's do the interview. So that at least I can freshen up my what I know and be prepared.
That was a question actually that I was going to ask, right? So on the difference between, I don't know, like a dialogue interview and technical interviews. If you're in a technical type of interview, what are the kind of things that you could get thrown at you?
What are the kind of things? What?
That you can get thrown at you in terms of questions or tasks to prove your worth?
Depends.
I guess actually let's take one step back, because what I saw, and there are some companies which really do it top notch. And I need to call out Amazon actually. I was in the process with Amazon. The stuff the recruiter shoots at you to prepare yourself for an interview is amazing, right? And also what I learned from stuff there is, think about the company and think about the role you want to do, and think about taxonomy, right? You can nail the topic, but it's like in school, right? If your approach was the wrong one, or actually the person on the other side didn't understand what you are talking about, many have somehow the arrogance to not try to understand, right? So if you don't use the right words, if whatever you explain, if you do it in a bit different way or have a different approach, exactly, then you don't get a job because you have not checked the boxes they want to hear.
So adapt to the situation, basically.
Exactly. Because I mean, on the other side, it's the same person, right? He interviews you because he maybe has the job already, or he knows what he wants. It's great if you have somebody who interviews you who knows what he wants and has an idea what type of people he wants to hire, right? If you can make that decision, right? And I can speak for myself. When I interviewed, whatever was answered, I basically didn't care, right? As long as it was on track. But I'm a unicorn in that space, I guess, because I was more interested in what fits. If I would need to work with this person, right? Would I like to work with that person? Because I mean, I was never a fan of this Navy SEAL approach to cybersecurity, right? We send one guy, he does the job. No, right? Why would we? It's pretty boring alone somewhere at the customer. I hate that, to be honest. Of course, it's pretty boring.
The thought process, right?
Flying to Leeds, being there all alone, it's a nice city, but not if you have nobody to talk to.
Plus, you're in a hotel the entire week and have nothing to do further.
Yeah, but sometimes I miss the DoubleTree. But anyway, different story. But yeah, so it depends on what they are looking for, and that's a good thing with smaller companies, right? Because then you have an interview with a manager who wants somebody for his team. in a bigger company, they want somebody to get the job done as fast as possible, right? Because they don't want to invest in you getting all the training for months, right? That's why you need to be there already. And that's what you need to decide before you actually apply or sign up for a job. Do I want to have the job? Or actually what also happens, do I want to really badly work for this company, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are still some companies on my bucket list. If they would be hiring and I fit, I would leave for that company, right? And I would maybe also take some payment step backs, because I mean, it's on the bucket list, right? And the bucket list is a bad thing. It's a really bad thing because you want to do it really badly. Mm-hmm. I can honestly say it gets less, right? So a lot of things of my companies I want to work for, I have worked. But that's a decision you have to take. And then you take, I mean, every big company has live at whatever, right, on mm-hmm. YouTube. Take a look, right? See how this company actually sells themselves on a platform, right? It's brushed, right? It's polished. We all know that. But what kind of people they put into this video, right, gives you actually, they don't hire people just to act as that, right? No. It finds the people they are happy to show, and it says a lot about the company, right? I mean, if you have a live ad whatever with full bearded men, right, tattooed all over, maybe, at least for myself, that's a company where I say, right, that's a spirit. I can work there, right? If it's all suit, not anymore, to be honest. But that could be Corona, right? I have not worn a shirt in a long time.
Maybe somewhat of a related question, because you have done all these different job roles, and you have done touched upon all these different expertise fields. What would you say if you are interested in branching out in a new field, which might not necessarily be your expertise yet, but you are interested in growing there? How would you prepare for an interview then? Or how would you prepare for that job role then, to show that you are capable to do those things, might not necessarily have the skills or the knowledge yet, but you're willing to learn? The
thing, and I guess first it starts with don't be afraid. That's what I would actually tell everyone, right? Some people will tell you otherwise, but there are a lot of jobs out there, right? Mm-hmm. The job, I mean, I'm not my father. My father worked in one company his whole life. Or my father-in-law, when I told him, well, actually I leave IBM, you can say it, right? I work there. When I said I leave it, they said, well, why? Why would you leave the company? I said, well, I have reasons. I just want to do something else. So it's not that anymore, right? It became a long way. And nobody will blame you, not anymore at least, if you say on your CV is a sabbatical, right? I mean, as crazy as it sounds, you can say, well, actually I wanted to do IoT devices at the lake for a year because I felt like it. Nobody will blame you, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something, the first thing you need to know for yourself, right? Don't be afraid and do failures, right? It's never that hard. I mean, we are, at least in Europe, right? America may be a bit different spirit, to be honest. But in Europe, I mean, then you leave the company after 2 months, right? And say, well, I mean, it's not the right circus for me. I mean,
and no one cares. Yeah,
no one cares, and that's the first thing. So, and the thing is, what I see. I mean, if you say I want to do something else, that means you have the interest in something. Don't ever little yourself on that interest, because if you have invested and you develop the interest for something, you are maybe actually already further than you think you are, right? And then with that confidence, just look around, right? Yeah. What would be a company that suits you? Because that's important, right? There are different companies. You cannot go to the big 5 because you have interest in consulting, right? You will not survive there. That's too much pressure, right? But if you go to a local company, right, and just try it, apply, sell yourself, right? You can do 2 approaches, basically always. I stopped over the years to try to buy the job, right? Sometimes you just try to buy in and you really want a job and then you do your best behavior. And I stopped that, right? I now sell myself. But again, I somehow can, right? Whatever. So not for everyone, but I mean, you are you. You have an interest, you want to do something. And tell them, right? I mean, at the other side, 98%, they are humans, right? If you tell the recruiter, hey, I want to do that, right? And yes, I know I don't have the experience, but I want to learn, right? I did that. Never actually also little what you did in your private time. Many people think, well, it's not on my CV. I have not done it, right? I cannot show for it. But if you make the first round and somebody asks you, right, this experience you have, whatever it is, right? If you now do home automation with your home assistant somewhere and you want to go to a company who does home assistant, I mean, it's the same technology. It doesn't change. Yeah. And whatever you learned, if you can say, hey, I have the confidence that I can do it, right? I have done this, and this already. Never for professional life. I mean, in my recent entrepreneurial, I also said, well, of course I know incident response, right? Of course I know SOAR platforms. I will processes for companies. Have I touched the platform? No, never. But who cares, right? What's the difference? Right? It's just put it out there. I never think it's too small of knowledge to mention it to the people. Get them in a conversation. Be basically the interviewer yourself, right? I mean, shoot back. I mean, it's like consulting to some extent. Right? Be in the conversation. Don't make it a ping pong game and they shoot your answer, right? Be open. I mean, I had so many interviews where I said, well, actually, I would need to Google that question, right? And it's true. And it's also a problem I generally have with all the certification, but it's, I guess, a different story, right? Because, I mean, the word is open book. The word is open book. Nobody can deny it, right? If Google is down and you can never Google, the IT world has different problems than whatever you try to answer, right? Whatever script you try to write and don't know the code. So yeah, sell yourself and just be relaxed. Most of the things fail because you are nervous and you can't find the answer. And then it takes a really good interviewer on the other end to help you out of that dilemma, right? Or grant you some slack. And that's the main difference. And I have seen recruiters who really are happy to see you fail somehow, right? Because they let you sit there, they let you cook, right? And if you're nice heated up, they say, okay, next question. That's not what you want to do, right? Yes, maybe you want to see how a person is under pressure, but you don't need to do it on the interview, in my opinion.
I find that surprisingly a refreshing approach, because the way that I've always been approached in my recruitment interviews is always like, be perfect and make sure that you know all the right answers that they want you to answer, and that can put a lot of pressure.
How do you know the right answer? I mean, honestly, I mean, you all work in a big company, right? If you now would move to a different team, even if it's the same company, you don't know what they are doing on a daily basis. And we also need to be honest. I was not often recruited, or the recruitment process never looked like the job I had at the end, right? Because, I mean, right? Somebody said, well, we need to hire. Okay, we need to put something out, right? We need to do this nice sheet, and then they write down what they want. And well, but nobody puts out there, well, heavy under stress, 60-hour work week. That's what we need, right? You have a company phone, you pick up and we call you. I mean, you don't write that in the offering. That's nobody would pick that up, right?
That's implicit.
But actually,
well, for some companies it is.
Yeah.
Not for all.
True, very true.
There's stuff floating around, like there's memes floating around on the internet about, job ads in a certain type of language. Like they're looking for a rock star or a ninja. It's a fast-paced environment, and actually,
it's gonna be overworked.
Right, the translation, which is basically, we need somebody to come in and sort out the shit show that our company is. You are going to
say no to anything,
and we're gonna pay you Mrs. salary.
Exactly. There's kind of coded language, right? And just coming back to what Jennifer was saying and picking up on something you said, Jörg, is there's research, right, that's shown that women have a tendency to self-eliminate for jobs where we haven't ticked 100% of the requirements. And basically what you're saying is, screw it, right?
I actually wanted to follow up that one up, because Jörg has done so many. Why am I raising my hand? Sorry, I'm used to raising my hand. So Jörg, I want to put you on a spotlight here, because you have done a lot of interviews with, and you've interviewed both women and men. What has been your experience when it comes to women? How do we behave? I know, for example, you did interview me, right? So how do we behave as opposed to the men? Or how can we improve?
Well, first, it's a tough question, because 8 billion people in the world, even if there are women and men, there is not, I cannot split it half-half, right?
Okay.
If I would need to say a tendency, especially, I mean, for the role I've interviewed you, I also interviewed others, and I can say men are more arrogant, right? And it's maybe the bold behavior actually I just explained, right? They feel sometimes they are, well,
Entitled.
you don't need to question me, right? I know that. And for the women I interviewed, how to phrase that politically correct?
Shame me.
It was some getting to the answer, right? It required some digging. Let's be honest there. It really required some digging. And men got actually angry. That's strange, right? So men get, if you tell them where they are wrong, they still try to explain. And women actually shut up a bit, right? They fall down a bit, and you see, oh wow. But that's actually, honestly, if you ever have a recruiter who puts you in that spot, right, without taking you out of that hole or building you up, just close the call and say thanks. I can see that the environment you work for actually is not the environment I want to work for, and that's my honest opinion, right? And I do that with everyone, right? The thing is, and all of three actually know me, I prefer working with women somehow, because I guess I can deal with that better than with most men. It's a thing. I don't know why. I mean, our friend, the other De Vries, right, is I guess one of the only men I can really work close with, and he doesn't annoy me. That's the thing. Sorry. Got it. Yes. But anyway, right? So it's a thing. I can see that actually women try harder, right? And it's a thing, and men just try to get by. So that's something I look out for, right? But when you recruit, if ever a recruiter or somebody who does interviews hears that, look at the person you interview, right? If they struggle, it's maybe not because they are not good, or it's maybe not because they don't know the answer. It's just they are now in the spotlight and they just freeze, and that's it, right? So come back to the question, rephrase it, honestly give a hint, right? Tell them the answer you would expect and ask them what they think about the answer, right? Because that's, you hire a person, right? You don't hire a robot. You don't want somebody to blindly do the job. You have a certain environment, you have a certain company. You want this person to really make it in your company, right? And be happy in your company. I mean, everybody, and the last 1.5 years, work-life balance is a thing, right?
Yeah.
And you need,
is it?
Yeah.
Does it exist?
It should be.
I can tell you it exists, right? I know for 6 months now. There is a thing called work-life balance. There are companies who have a work-life balance committee, just saying, right? I know you never heard of that. But
I have heard of work-life balance.
No, on that, right? Somebody posted a thing that I saw earlier this week about there isn't actually such a thing as work-life balance. What there is life. And in your life, you have different things that you want to fit. And sometimes what happens is that work takes up too much space. So you haven't got the space for the other stuff. It's super important, though. I mean, that if you have a company where there's an acknowledgement that people have lives and it's legitimate, and that you trust them to do the work, but it doesn't have to consume everything else. And it shouldn't. Exactly. Not even that it doesn't, there's a kind of commitment that it shouldn't.
And that's the point, right? And I mean, one thing I can say is that I always, when I work with people, right, or I led the team, I expect the people to go the extra mile. Let's be honest, right? I expect that everybody does more than he is actually supposed to. But, and that's something you need to think about. If you expect somebody to go the extra mile, you need to leave the room that there is room for this extra mile, right?
Yeah.
Because just he fell off the cliff, right? If you say, hey, we are 1 meter before the cliff, I want you to go the extra mile, that goes nowhere, right? That just throws you over the edge. And that's something you cannot stack on top, right? And go up miles after miles. If you expect somebody to do more, you also need to see that there is in the baseline for people. I mean, it's actually one of our former colleagues, and we should not name him, the Dutch word, right? Werkgever, right? So, I mean, the employee is somebody who gives you work, right? And that's it. And there are people out there, right? There are people who are happy, they get work, they do it for 40 hours, and that's what they want. And that needs to be the baseline. The baseline cannot be somebody who actually works 80 hours, right? Because if he's the baseline, then you cannot reach it, right? You will never make it to the baseline.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we have examples of that, right? We don't need to name it.
Not just in technology, by the way, also in financial industry, in consulting industry.
Everywhere,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's everywhere.
Yeah.
But back to the other thing, right? Actually, the advertising, because I like it, right? I have an internal hate against some advertising. I like the ninjas though, right? I mean, I work for this ninja company, so I love ninja, right? Actually, when I read it, I actually said, well, yeah, that's something. Because if you say, hey, we need ninjas, that's something. That's bold, and it tells you a lot about the spirit of a company, right? If you would say for samurai, actually, I would say, well, maybe no. Right? Samurai is a bit. You need to make harakiri if something was wrong. That's maybe not it, right? But a ninja actually, I mean, it means somehow you can also go in a stealth mode and just do whatever you like, right? And that's, if a company puts out a ninja, and I hope they thought about it, right? That means you have a lot of freedom, right? And you can play a bit dirty. Let's be honest, right? That's what ninjas do. But there are other quotes like, do your best work ever. Which I think, well, but I can do that everywhere, right? Because I do my best work, right?
It's too generic.
Right? It's really generic, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I always do my best work, but that's not a slogan to hire me, right? Because that doesn't give me anything, every meaning, every insight in what you are looking for. So, but everything has a slogan now, right? Working in cybersecurity, I mean, print nightmare. I mean, we have names for things. It's somebody tries to make a slogan, and people earn making a slogan. As the same way as people make money when they recruit. It's a thing.
So bringing it back to the recruiters.
Good idea.
What would you? what would be your advice when dealing with recruiters?
Well, first of all, be open, right? In all directions. I told recruiters, actually, I'm not looking, right? But what do you have to offer? I also directly asked for the company, right? Because actually, no recruiter tells you the company.
No, they never tell you the company or the actual function or the salary range.
Yeah, and that's something, because I instantly say, well, what is the company? Also, I mean, in my previous job, right? There are companies I know better than the company itself, and I know I don't want to work with them, right? So that's something which indicates me if I want to work for if I want to take that role or not. Let's be honest. Salary is for me nowadays the biggest part. After that, right? Give me a range, right? And be honest, right? I mean, because it's a thing, right? You earn money, and you need to at least see if it is improvement. And also for everybody out there who goes from a bigger company to a smaller company, you should earn more money in the smaller company. Oh, and I see there are some eyes which opening, because normally the thing about big companies, I mean, if you open your workday, I open mine, you have 7 people who need to actually have a share of the €1 you make, right? I mean, you are a consultant, you get sold somewhere, and this $1 is shared with the 7 managers above you, right? Not equally to some extent, but that's it. In a smaller company, actually, you share it with you and your boss.
Yeah.
If you think about that, and also for most companies, working in a bigger company gives you some sort of benefits. Living here in the Netherlands, at least, right? It comes down to what do they pay for travel? What do they do? And bigger companies have that, right? Suddenly you have health things you can go to. You have some background, and that's something which is part of your salary for that bigger company.
Your benefits, yeah.
That's your benefits. And a smaller company maybe doesn't have that, and you always need to have that in mind, right? So a smaller company should give you basically more money. That's a thing. That's something you need to have in mind. It's not always the case, right? And then it's some of a personal choice, right?
Yeah.
If you like that company, go for it.
And negotiating is always possible.
Exactly.
Either for monetary compensation or other compensation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how do you handle the recruiters that don't want to give you the salary range?
Well, in my case, that's the end of the discussion.
Okay,
or
no,
it
as in
depends,
for a
right?
newbie. Mhm.
Well, as a newbie, the thing is, look it up, right? We have Glassdoor, we have a lot of tools where you can get an indication. And honestly, go to LinkedIn. Look at somebody at a company. I mean, maybe your LinkedIn is just one hop away from that person who's working there in the role you actually want. Just ask. I mean, it's Europe. Many people tell you that salary is a secret. It's not. Right? I mean, also in companies, they say, well, you should not talk with your colleagues about your salary. Well, there is no legal ground for that, right? If you go to a colleague and say, hey, what do you earn? There's no law who forbids him for answering. So, and that's the thing. But Glassdoor, right? And take a look, because the entry level is, everybody says they have a competitive salary, right? So
whatever that means.
Whatever that means, yeah? Whatever that means. I mean, competitive is a lot. I can really tell, because it's actually strange what people think is competitive. But yeah, that's basically what you need to do. Glassdoor is a nice thing, right? You get people put their salary out there.
Yeah.
What would be your red flags? Right. So I don't know. Say, for example, a company that the company is right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the big pro thing that's going to go, yeah, they're really attracting you to a role. But what would be the things that would make you think twice? Kind of going, yeah, not sure I'm going into something good here.
Well, it's a good question, definitely. And it depends, right? It depends on who you are, where you are in your life or in your journey, right? And if you feel there's any red flag, so honestly, right, a red flag is everything you recognize as maybe not being okay, right? And if you see it in the interview process where everybody is polished and everybody tries to actually impress you, if you see a red flag there, right, run. Run as fast as you can, because I mean, it will not get better after that, right? Nobody ever said, oh, well, in the interview, I thought you are a shitty company, but you got really better when I joined. That will not happen. Sorry, right? So the first impression they leave on you, it normally gets worse. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, red flag for me is always a bit. I talk with my wife, let's be honest, and I know she will look the video, so that's something. Because I tend to make rush decisions, right? Hey, I love to do that. I do it. And I need also somebody to talk with me about it.
To calm you down a little bit, right?
But, yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes you need somebody to set your head straight, right? Because I'm somehow impulsive, right? If I want to do it, I want to do it.
Yeah, same thing.
And if I want to do it on Tuesday, maybe the next Monday is a different story. So, so think about it, right? If you get an offer, if you make it that far, let's say you had your 27 interviews, right? And you get an offer. First of all, always wait for the offer, right? You need to be really love the company so that it can be no itchy feeling. If you actually quit your old job, wait for the offer, right? Just do it, right? Don't, because it's a thing, right? Everybody has a cool down period, right? And you don't want to actually quit your job before having a new contract. Don't do that. And then sit down and think. I mean, there are companies who will be really upset if you bail out on the last minute. I did that once. Not that I regret it, but it was a decision because I thought I'm not at the end with my old company. And that's why I bailed out of, although I had a contract and it was a better contract anyway. So it needs to feel right. And feeling is something only you have, right? So talk with people about it and really make the famous pro and con list, right? Sit down. What do I gain? What do I lose, right? What's in it for me? And then everything we talked about comes also into that, right? Don't see it as the next company you join is the company you will retire in. That's 2021. It's not the truth. And if you need to do it a chess game, right? So you need to think, well, actually, I now do this because they give me that benefit, or I get that title, right? I mean, sometimes you maybe join a role because you really want to have the title on your CV. So recruiters find you with your new title. And you say, well, I will go there and I will do it for a year. I have the title, I get the experience, and I can then go to my famous job at whatever, Google, right? I mean, you need to start somewhere. And there are enough jobs where you can jump between companies to get the experience you need maybe to attend a role, but don't wait too long. And maybe also look around when you are in the company, because maybe the company is so great that you don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Could be.
Another thing is, you mentioned Glassdoor, and in Glassdoor, normally they'll have the ratings for a company. And if you read the reviews, there sometimes you can, use your common sense and understand whether or not that is the environment that you want to end up in.
Yeah, that's true. But also take it with a pinch of salt, right? Because there are people
obviously.
who hate their old company, right? Because they left and they rented and they are really unhappy. They are like me, right? And they think, oh my God, right? What happened? And then some people go to the internet and they write all these nasty reviews and log into Glassdoor 25 times with their 30 email addresses, because they just don't like how they were treated. But that's not the general thing. And then also it depends on the company size. I had an interview maybe 2 years ago with a small company in Harlem, right? So, and it was actually amazing, right? Because and I like that recruiter, right? The recruiter got the details. He sent my details over to the company, and he said, "Well, come to Harlem, right? They want to see you." There was no interview, right? There was nothing. The interview was I go to the company. It was a small office with maybe 10, 12 people, right? And I was sitting there, right? They offered coffee and they talked about me. There was actually nothing about the role. They said, "Hey, we want to build this thing, right? And we're looking for people to build with us." And that's a different thing. Back then, stupid me said, "Well, I don't go from this large company to such a small company," because it felt to me moving to the Netherlands, right? Being here for back then, I guess 2 or 3 years, right? Working for this big company, actually don't know how to quit a job in the Netherlands. Don't know how. I mean, come on, it's a thing, right? And now I need to change my health insurance at the end of the year because I switched the company. That's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was a bit afraid, and I didn't do it, right? But was also a bit younger me than I am now. And the recruiter still pings me every year if I want to try the company. So it's also strange.
Looking also at the time, because we're almost at the end of the scheduled period, is there anything that you want to give like as final thoughts, final comments, input, any type of guidance, basically?
Yoda style, right? The words of Jörg.
What do you want to be remembered?
I thought we are at the end, and now you ask me to do another 20 minutes. That's strange. But anyway, be yourself, right? It's recruitment. You look for a job. The thing you bring to the table is not primarily the skills you have attained. It's you, right? You are the resource they want to hire. If they would like to hire your knowledge, they could just buy all the books you have read, right? And just spread it across the company. You are the resource they want to hire. You are the thing that is beneficial, and whatever you bring to the table, your dreams, your hobbies, whatever you want to do. I read posts where people said, "Well, the company is not your family." Well, not true. It is, right?
It is.
You spend 8 hours a day with that people in that company. That's more than you spend at home, right?
In some cases, it's a dysfunctional family, but hey.
Well, sometimes it's a normal family. Yes, I get that. Well, anyway, so you are the resource. What they want to buy is you, right? Not your university degree, not the certifications you have done. You are the resource. Sell yourself, be open, and maybe most important, if you're stuck in an interview and you don't know the answer, just say you don't know the answer, right? If they can give you a hint. And ask at the end of the question, right? If they say, well, it's the wrong answer, ask them for the right one. Because you gain experience in that interview to be better next time. So always ask, well, what was the right answer, right? And in the interviews I did, some people really didn't ask, right? And they just were happy if it was the wrong answer and said, okay, well, sorry. But that's not how you do it. Because maybe, and that's the final one, right? Because maybe if you really are confident in yourself, you will spot a weakness in the answer they provide. And that's a topic you can basically follow up on, right? Because then you can say, well, but, right? Have you thought about that? If it's one tiny aspect, and that again brings you back into the conversation and shows that you have the skills they are looking for. You were just not able to present it when asked the first time.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Mhm. I can add that always ask for feedback. Even though if let's say you didn't get the job or the role, still ask for feedback. Ask them to tell you what was wrong, how you can improve for the next round. What are
Bigger
your
companies
thoughts,
don't
Han?
do it anymore. Actually, bigger companies,
Yeah?
if you get the answer, they say, well, we don't provide feedback. Definitely. I saw
Why
some
is that?
emails from there. Well, I think it's law, right? If they give you the wrong feedback, you can sue or something.
Or
Right?
maybe too many candidates who
Yeah.
did that.
Well, that would be really a cheap excuse, right?
Too
Because you interviewed
time-consuming,
them
maybe.
anyway, right? Somebody provide the feedback to you.
Yeah.
Because if they don't have the feedback, well, what was the decision based on, right?
Mm.
But I guess it's
Yeah.
really just you don't want to leave any room for a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Any last words?
No, I was just thinking about what Jörg said. Be yourself. It's so true. I think just thinking about interviews I've been in, and particularly when I was younger, I think I went in being something that I thought they wanted me to be, and the most successful. Actually, the role I'm currently in, I nearly didn't go to that interview because I was so blasé about interviews I had in other big companies. And I turned up in that interview and I'd never been more myself than I was in that one. And had a conversation about, I was asked, what do you want to do? And if I'd been in normal interview mode, I would have come up with some very elaborate answer. And I said, I just want to do something that feels useful with people I like.
Mhm.
And he kind of went, huh. Haven't heard that before. Let's have a conversation about that. But yeah, so I totally buy into what Jörg said. It requires being a bit brave, though. I think there's a lot of things pushing us not to be ourselves.
Yeah, but think about that, right? Everything requires to be brave, right? Going out into the sun is nowadays being brave, right? You are brave all the time, right? And if you want it, just be brave one more time. I know it's easier said than done, right? I mean, but it's not the end of the world if you don't get a job, right? It's not the end of the world if you don't have the answer they are asking you. But it's maybe the end of the world if you stop trying. That's basically it. Think about that.
Definitely.
Jennifer, want to wrap up?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything new. I just want to reiterate, I think it's great to be yourself, put yourself out there, be brave, make sure that you take it as a learning experience and discuss experiences with people, basically.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
Perfect. That being said, Jörg, thank you so much for joining with us today. I know
Always.
I enjoyed the conversation extremely. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Love to have you back.
Perhaps until next time.
Send me a WhatsApp whenever you need me.
Fair enough. For our viewers, like and subscribe, share if you can, and if you want to join us like Jörg did today, send a message to us. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
ciao.
Bye-bye.